without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure and excitement to introduce our first speaker today. He is our CEO, Aidan Hyman. Aidan, why don't you join me on the main stage here and turn your camera and mic on. It will take a second, so I apologize. Hey, Aidan, how are you doing today?
Dustin, I'm doing well, thanks.
Awesome.
For joining us today.
The floor is yours.
Thanks, Dustin. All right. Perfect. First of all, I just wanted to welcome everyone to our inaugural. It is something that we are really proud to be putting on, and even more proud to be able to share this stage with so many of our incredible partner projects and really just people in the ecosystem that we're truly honored to be working towards their visions. So firstly, again, thank you to everyone who's attending today. Thank you to the speakers for taking time out of your lives to make this the event that it is. And a real big shout out to the ChainSafe Party Planning Committee. That includes Dustin, of course, Cindy, Paulina, Ryan, and Stu for making everything you see today here possible. Just gonna go to the chat part just to make sure if anything bad happens that you all can let me know. So firstly, why did we do this? Well, at ChainSafe, it's really important for us to get across how important collaboration has been for our organization and in the projects that we work on in delivering exceptional projects. You know, we really do believe that collaboration is good for the whole garden. When building an ecosystem of projects that all work together, it is vitally important that there is synergy amongst these different organizations so that you can work towards what is a common goal at the end of the day that is shared across these different organizations. So we hope that this is an event that can really bridge a lot of those gaps that don't necessarily get kind of bridged often enough. You know, we have so many different exciting ecosystems that we contribute to that we feel are really secluded from one another and don't get opportunities to collaborate and have these open conversations and just to learn from one another, because at the end of the day, everyone is really dealing with a lot of these similar issues. So just to briefly discuss a little bit about ChainSafe, a little bit about how we're broken down, and then I'll get a bit into you know, one of the projects that we're working on in detail, while also highlighting some of the incredible work that everyone at ChainSafe is doing every day. So really simply, our mission is to realize the potential of Web3 through sustainable open source development. And we'll talk a little bit during this talk about what open source means and what sustainability means for us as an organization and generally in our ecosystem. And very simply, we envision a world with organizations that empower people to create and innovate. Too much of the organizations that are sitting within, you know, the modern tech stack are really just there to take advantage of asymmetrical power dynamics that really favor the incumbents and don't allow for newer, innovative projects to take shape in an innovative way. So just a little bit about, you know, how we've gotten here. We're almost a 4-year-old company where a lot of us met at the Ethereum developers meetup here in Toronto. Our founders then kind of started to realize that we really do want to work together regularly on bringing this technology to the forefront of the world. And so we started moving, and it all goes kind of to the right. We started to rent some space at our local public library. And from there, we started to need a real office. So we started moving into the living room of one of my co-founders, Stu. And after that, we were really fortunate to be offered some space in the office of a project that we were contributing towards. And without that, these community events like the Ethereum Developers Meetup, like that project who offered us real office space, we wouldn't have had the ability to not just meet each other, but to work towards what we see today. And so we're incredibly thankful and feel that it is our duty as a result to contribute towards the things that gave us what we have today. In the middle, you'll see at the bottom that is our first office, which is now the office next to our current office, which you see on the right, and is currently just a room of couches where we can hang out and relax. And on the bottom right, you can see what is one of the last meetups we had a few years ago, which is the Ethereum Developers Meetup that we now help co-organize out of our office. And this is one of the last times, unfortunately, it's kind of bittersweet that we got to be with a large number of us together. It's at the last ETH Waterloo, and outside of the people that regularly come to the office or did come to the office, this was one of the last times we were able to see people that don't live in Toronto. With COVID, there's been a lot of differences in the way that we interact physically with one another, and so we definitely are thankful for having had that opportunity to have been with each other. And so where are we now? Well, now ChainSafe is a company that's distributed across 15 countries, with a few more by the end of the year to be added to this map, with over 40 members. So within the early parts of the new year, we'll be at over 45 people. And so how do we kind of do what we do? Well, really simply, we're broken down into a few different departments that work together while working in very specific roles. We have our engineering, our project management, operations, and business development departments, which all work towards our common goal of Web3 adoption. And how does our business really function? Because so many times people ask us, how do you do what you do? Or how does it kind of maintain its sustainability? And that's through these three kind of different functions, which is a consulting, R&D, and product wing. And these all work really closely together while also all working towards Web3 adoption. And so obviously in not every situation are there double-sided arrows going to each and every one, but this is just to articulate how each and every one of these functions can work together and all can gain momentum from Web3 adoption while contributing to Web3 adoption. So it's really important when we are kind of describing our business to articulate how each and every one of these pieces work together towards what is our goal at the end of the day, which is Web3 adoption. And so how does a general team look at ChainSafe? Well, we're made up of a group of engineers with a tech lead and a PM. And these people work together towards executing on the projects that you see here. Lodestar, which is a TypeScript implementation of the ETH2 ecosystem. Gossamer, a Golang implementation of the Polkadot host. Ethermint, which is Ethereum on Tendermint using the Cosmos SDK. Forest, a Rust implementation of Filecoin. And ETC support into Hyperledger Besu. All of these projects will be discussed over the next 3 days, and you can learn from the people who are making these things happen. And if you're ever interested in seeing kind of what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, you can always follow our code on GitHub, which is something we're incredibly proud of. A whole bunch of other projects that we're working on as part of those different protocols, as well as for general purposes, includes ChainBridge, which I'll discuss a bit more in detail in the next few slides, which is a modular multi-chain blockchain bridge. Web3.js, which is the Ethereum JavaScript API. Anemone, which is a testing tool for batch transactions and opcodes. Gossip Sub, JS Gossip Sub. BLS, SHA-256 and assembly script, Go Snorkel, and ChainDB. And a bunch of these projects to the bottom are all really the core that make up what the previous protocol projects are. And so, these and many other repositories are all available within our GitHub. So I definitely suggest that you check them out if you're interested in any of them and want to see what else we're working on that I couldn't include in this one slide. And so one of the core things at ChainSafe is our protocol objectivity. And what's incredibly important here is to remember why it is all of us are here and in the technology that we're building. And really simply put, we're here to disintermediate a digital world that currently asymmetrically holds certain incumbent players in a position of power against those that they are just extracting value from. And we truly believe that if blockchains do aim to disintermediate this asymmetrical power dynamic that is truly prevalent in society, not just in the digital world, how are we able to do this if one blockchain is the intermediary for that disintermediation? And that was something that always felt hypocritical to us and always felt like it was completely in contrast to what the true ethos of this movement is, which is to empower individuals to build the things they want to see in the world. So also, to go back and discuss a few of the things within our mission and vision, which is sustainability. Very simply, sustainability is the ability to exist constantly. And this is really important because existing constantly ensures that our software will be able to be relied on and be able to provide high value impact consistently and without any doubt. To us, open source is very simply can be taken from the Linux Foundation's website on what is open source, and it can be anything that meets this criteria of, is it available in its source code? May that source code be modified and redistributed? And finally, does it have any other criteria? So it is really important to understand what we mean when we say sustainability, what we mean when we say open source, and then what that open source looks like sustainably in the traditional world. And so currently looking at the Linux Foundation's Platinum sponsors, you see a whole bunch of different companies here. And all of these companies, you see them and you see that they don't necessarily have their own vertical. Rather, they're competitors with each other and are all looking to basically out-compete one another in the markets with users on a day-to-day basis. And so what can we learn from that? Well, we can learn that simply if we're not able to get competitors to see value beyond zero-sum thinking, we will lose and our technology will never gain traction. And that is an incredibly important takeaway because there is no ability for us to have this consolidation of a single platform, because without having a multitude of options for people to use like you do in the open source world, people cannot and will not see value beyond zero-sum thinking. And so that protocol objectivity, that sustainability, and that open source model must align with the different businesses and companies that are looking to utilize that technology. We cannot be building in isolation. And so a response to that project is Chainbridge, which is currently being supported in 8+ projects and was originally supported by ETC Labs, Centrifuge, Celo, and Aragon. And you'll learn more about a few other projects that are integrating Chainbridge into their stack. And what is incredible about this project, as it aims to eventually allow for a single relayer set to facilitate cross-chain data exchanges, in a way that does not rely on a single blockchain. So what are our goals for this project? In that it can be easily integratable to any future chains, that the ability to transfer between multiple chains should be a top priority, and that there's a modular security aspect where you do not need to utilize a specific security model and can actually implement any type that you choose or utilize any of the options that are available. And so what is a final takeaway here when kind of looking at the talk as a whole and really summarizing it is that, without learning the history of open source, it is easy to think that good intention is what has fueled this movement, when in reality, the fuel for this movement is economic cooperation. That should be an obvious thing to people building within the blockchain space, but it's sometimes not necessarily understood at the protocol layer. That without different actors that could be competitors working together towards some commonality, without the need for zero-sum thinking, open source cannot succeed. And at the end of the day, blockchain technology is an accumulation of a whole bunch of movements, but at its core, the open source movement is what is the kind of core anchor to the things that we build. So that brings us back to this slide, which is that collaboration is good for the whole garden. If we are not working together towards some commonality, towards some common goals of general Web3 adoption, and are not able to work together and are stuck fighting with one another, while not too many people outside of the blockchain space are using blockchain technologies, how can we expect to ever get to mainstream adoption, right? It is the conversations that we have with people that don't necessarily hold the same technological biases that we have going into those conversations that will be able to change our perspective and help us learn the most. So unfortunately, this slide isn't the biggest, but this is the schedule for today. And I'm just so incredibly excited by the amazing speakers that are participating today, tomorrow, and on the 4th. We're so proud to be able to have all of these different people that we either work with or work towards some kind of common goal. And it's something that has taken us, over 3 years to get to this point where we can have so much to share with not just our community, but hopefully the communities of all of these different projects. And if you're wanting to look at the schedule and see what's available over these next 3 days, please go to cscon.chainsafe.io, where you can also see our incredible new website that Cindy has been working on, and just learn a lot more about us, our values, and what we're looking to really do with this technology. Some more schedule. And then, of course, the final plug is that we're hiring. We're currently looking for the following positions, and you can check it out, the actual job descriptions at chainsafe.io/careers. Thank you so much for joining us today and for joining us hopefully across these next 3 days. There's my email contact, our Twitter, where you can follow a lot of the conversations, our GitHub, of course, and our website if you want to learn more about us. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Aidan. That's awesome. I always love hearing ChainSafe's origin story. That's great.
Thank you, Justin, for making this happen.
We do have a couple Q&A questions for you. The first question is, what were some of the early challenges starting ChainSafe?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Saying you're focused on protocol objectivity when really all we were working on at the time is Ethereum, it definitely was a challenge in conveying that vision. But we always felt from day one that, to restrict ourselves to one platform is restricting our ability to truly impact a wide spread of different ecosystems.
That's awesome. We have one more question in Q&A. Why start off as a consulting business and not a product or ecosystem at the beginning?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For us, it was very clear from the beginning that the most impact we can have is by working with others towards realizing their visions, and at the same time taking those lessons learned and realizing what is truly necessary for blockchain adoption. So for example, if we go back to, let's see if I can quickly go there. If we go back to this slide, right, there's so many different ways in which Web3 adoption and different aspects of our business have affected both the products and R&D side of things. So I would say that working with communities, understanding what they're truly looking for, and then being there for when Web3 adoption does occur is truly the biggest privilege we've had is by having a pulse on what is going on and what people are looking for from this technology.
That's awesome. Well said, Aidan. That is fantastic. So if you can join me in doing some emojis and clapping emojis in the chat for our CEO, Aidan, that'd be awesome. Aidan, thank you so much for kicking off CSCON. It's absolutely been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.